Welcome to Tech for Good with Bethnal Green Ventures. I'm Paul Miller, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Masahiro Hata from Glin Impact Capital. Glin Impact Capital is an impact-focused investment firm based in Japan, backing founders tackling some of the most pressing social and environmental challenges across Japan and globally. Masahiro has been at the forefront of thinking about how capital can be deployed more intentionally to support meaningful long-term change. So I'm really looking forward to chatting to him today. Masa, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thank you for having me today. It's very privileged to join this, podcast. Yeah, so
Thank you.
excited to, share what I experience in Japan. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so to start off, tell us a bit about Glin Impact Capital. What do you do? What are the kind of problems that you're trying to solve through your investments?
Sure. So we are one of the first market rate impact investor, preliminarily investing at the growth stage. So typically Series B and beyond. And then our geographic focus is mainly in Japan, but we do some selective investments globally as well. And our impact theme are threefold: is climate, two is healthcare, and then three is a social inclusion. In Japanese context, it's like aging society, abandoned rural area, or lack of diversity. Like those are the included in the social inclusion theme. And as I said, we do this market rate impact investing in Japan. So we are not concessionary, and we want to see some kind of impact and business performance reinforce each other. So that's something we are looking for. Yeah. So that's
great.
the starting point. Yep.
And what led you personally into impact investing? Was there a particular moment or experience that shaped your perspective on impact investing? And how long have you been working on this?
Thank you so much. Actually, so for impact investing, I'm starting practicing impact investing for 5 years now. But before that, I was engaging in impact business, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I was working for one Japanese firm, and we made one big investment in emerging market, and we kind of create the kind of labor opportunity for the people who wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise. And also we could hire some people who couldn't read as well. So I saw some impactfulness in that business. And that was the kind of, starting point. But as company grow to 300 employees firm, then I kind of realized the kind of, the limit of what one company can do. And that moment, I wanted to shift to the financial world so that I can leverage my experience to more wide, broad set of companies to adopt impact, mindset when they make business decisions. That was the kind of, and then another reason I'm doing this is I believe current capitalism still fails to price in externalities. So I believe when we look back in, I'd say, 30 years, 50 years, or even 100 years, people may say that capitalism today lacked purpose. So through impact investing, kind of we want to demonstrate that impact and profit are not trade-off, but trade-on. And we want to prove that. And if we can prove that, the capital will naturally flow towards these solutions and towards impact. And then so that we can have more sustainable society at the end of the day. So our goal is not just to generate return, not just impact, but we want to change where capital flows so that we can have a more sustainable form of capitalism at the end of the day.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's very aligned with how we think about things at Bethnal Green Ventures as well, which is one of the reasons why we've met a few times now, haven't we? And there's lots of similarities between BGV and Glin. How would you describe the current state of impact investing more broadly in Japan?
Yeah, happy to share. So I'd say in one word, Japanese impact investing market is in growth stage. I'd say we had a kind of nascent stage for last 4-5 years, but now moving into the growth stage because of like these three reasons. that I will mention from now. One, so the one turning point we had in Japan was back in 2022 when former Prime Minister Kishida adopted impact investing in his as one of his economic policies back in 2022. And then that generated a lot of attention to impact investing from corporates and policymakers and ministries and also financial institutions. And then since then, the market has grown significantly in recent years. Just let me give you some examples. Like one, impact asset under management back in 2020, it was only like 3 billion USD in Japan. And the number I had in my mind is 120 billion USD 2024. So
Wow.
about like X in 4 years.
Yeah.
That's great momentum. And then that momentum is still continuing at this moment. And also the number of financial institutions interested in impact investing is increasing at this moment. We have one initiative called Impact Driven Financing Initiative in Japan. That's a network of financial institutions who want to learn and or practice impact finance. And then that number was around 10 back in 2021 too. And now it increased to like over 80 at this moment. So you can see like over 80 financial institutions, including largest banks, institutional investors, like those are the signatories of this network. So we have a lot of, big players, big financial players interested in this impact investing at this moment. And then lastly, I want to mention about the GPIF. As you might know, like GPIF is a Japanese pension plan, and that's one of the largest pension plan in the world. And they just started now started studying about considering impact since last. They are still in the study process, and if we apply kind of an analogy of ESG investing, when they started ESG investing, took like 1 to 2 years to study how they should practice ESG investing. So they signed PRI back in 2015, and they started doing ESG investing since 2017. Since they started studying, last year, we, hope they could do something related to impact starting end of this year or early next year. So that might be great game changer for Japanese impact investing ecosystem.
How do you see things changing on the startup side as well? Do you see more and more founders in Japan who are interested in seeking out impact investing?
Yes, that number is also increasing. There's also one association called Impact Startup Association in Japan. The number of startups started from like 10, 20 back in maybe I would say like 5 years ago, but that number already reached hundreds, and it now targeting thousands at this moment. As you know, many of the founders have some real experience, personal experience to start business when they faced some, inequity or unreasonable thing. They want to change that situation so that they started business. And then that kind of experience naturally led those founders to Impact Startup Association at this moment in Japan. Yeah.
That's great. When you're making investments from Glyn, how do you think about ensuring that you do get a positive impact? How do you think about making sure that there is a real world outcome and not just sort of warm words and good intentions? What are your ways of ensuring that?
Okay, that's yeah. Maybe my answer would be very simple. We ask a simple question: can this business work as a real business? So like, maybe some prototype to solve some impact issue, a social issue or environmental issue, but can this work as a real business or not? And if the business is not viable, the impact will not scale. We calculate kind of impact like unit impact times scale. So,
Mm.
and if scale lacks, impact will not occur in wide scale. So we try to see the business side to actually execute impact business in real world. Yeah.
And that's one way, because you really look for businesses where the impact and the business model are linked. That's
Mhm.
right, isn't it? In terms of thinking about, like, the more of the business there is, the more
Yeah,
impact there is.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly. We kind of use analogy of a coin, kind of size of the social issue is the size of the market. That's the
Mm.
kind of analogy we use. So it's a same thing, but just both two sides of the coins.
Two sides
So
of the same coin. Yeah.
yeah, so basically, we want to see large social issues or large market size, and we want to see the scalable business solution or services so that we can, that business can solve that social issues in wide scale, that so that generating, great impact in the society. Yeah.
And when you introduced Glyn, you said, "Oh, mainly focus on Japan, but you do
Mhm.
have that sort of global outlook as well." What opportunities do you see for Glyn outside of Japan? Are there particular areas of the world that you're most focused on, or how do you think about that international investment side of what you do?
Yeah, sure. So we see a global market, especially in two impact themes. One is climate, and then two is healthcare. Because those two themes doesn't have kind of national border, I would say. So,
Mm.
climate is a global issue, and healthcare also it's related to human body. Of course, some FDA process is different across countries, but basically, if that solution works in, UK, that should work in Japan as well. So like for those two themes, we look global opportunity mainly.
And when you're evaluating startups, I mean, you said a little bit about you're really investing at the growth stage. Talk
Yep.
talk us through a little bit about your process for deciding whether to invest or not. What do you ask startups to go through in order to get your investment, and what are you really looking for?
Sure. To put for the simplicity, I would say I would put like so we have two, kind of DD lines. Like one is a financial lines and the two is a impact lines. And then we need to have those like two track and both tracks should be good enough for us to make investment. That's the kind of
Mm.
process, how we structure the process. And then of course, during the process, when we do impact DD, we deep dive into the analysis on the beneficiaries, what's the kind of current situation, what's the problem they are facing, and then what change could change their situation. So like those kind of analysis on impact can be good input for the business DD. And then that good business DD translate into good financial return analysis as well. So, we do kind of two tracks DDs, but both insights from those two tracks inputting each other so that
Yeah.
we can have better decision making at the end of the day.
Yeah, and when you're working with the ventures after you've
Mhm.
made your investment, are there any common challenges that you're seeing at the moment, in terms of startups in Japan and some of the international ones you made? What would you say are the most common challenges that they face?
Sure. One of the difficulties that Japanese startups are facing is especially after IPO. So as you might know, the Japanese startups exit is mainly through IPO over
Yeah, which
because
is which is quite different
yeah,
from
it's
Europe, isn't
quite
it? It's
different.
like sort of we always moan that there's never any IPOs in Europe, but in Japan it's very common for growth stage companies.
Yes, yes, exactly. And then for companies after IPO, they have different set of investors. Then those investors sometimes don't understand why this company started in the past and then what's their mission, but
Mm.
they are more focused on, PL and short-term business projection. rather than long-term growth for the company and mission. So that gives a little bit challenges to the startup, impactful startups who
Mm.
goes to IPO and public market. So that's the
Yeah.
kind of challenge we see at this moment. To change that kind of situation, of course, there is a kind of initiative that, if we, those kind of impact, as I said, the two sides of a coin. If you find good impact, that means that could be great solution to some social issues. And that could give you some alpha or some business, profit not priced in at the public market at this moment.
Mm.
So that's something some, studies are going on in Japan to show some hypothesis, and that could, hopefully, after having many cases, that could be proved, and that could change the public equity investors' view in the
Mm.
future.
And tell us a little bit about the way that corporates work around impact in Japan as well, because I've certainly noticed that there's a real culture, isn't there, of corporate venture capital
Hmm.
in Japan, which is maybe not quite so strong in Europe and even in the US actually.
Hmm.
But there's quite a lot of them involved in climate and health and all those kinds of things. Do they play an important role for impact startups?
Yeah, I think so for now, and also I hope their role will be increased in the future. That's my short answer. Maybe you might know, but Japan's economy is still highly driven by large corporates, not by startups at this moment. And startups often need them for distribution or infrastructure or market access. So collaboration with those large corporates is very fundamental for the growth of those startups. Um, and so, of course, there is a still like challenge of the speed, execution speed is different or some, between those corporates and the startups. But in Japan, scaling business without corporates is difficult. So good startups are leveraging big corporates in Japan at this moment. So their role, and then they have, the big corporates often has good purpose, and then they
Mm.
have good resources to make it happen. So with that in mind, they might be good, kind of entrepreneur of impact,
Mm.
and they can be very supportive, maybe through investment, maybe through some business collaboration, for impact startups to scale in Japan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an area where there is, quite a big difference I've seen between the way that sort of Japanese
Yeah.
corporates think about startups and European ones. But so there's obviously huge amounts of conversation about at the moment around AI, and I wondered how is that interacting with the impact investing world in Japan? Are there particular opportunities around AI that you've spotted, or are people talking about some of the risks of AI in terms of having a negative impact as well?
Yeah, sure. So this is becoming a big discussion in Japan,
Mm.
or I'd say globally at this
Mm.
moment. I'd say positive side, AI is the game changer at this moment. So our investment themes includes a lot of AI, driven business models or AI driven technologies. Even climate sector, we see some energy management system by AI or climate modeling, supply chain, or some efficiency optimization, or climate insurance risk analysis by AI. So we see AI as enabler, um, but also, as I mentioned, maybe we face two difficult questions at this moment. One is, AI is also, of course, use a lot of energy, and
Mm.
and then that require a lot of data center as well. Data center requires a lot of water around that, energy around that. So, use of AI generate some energy water consumption problem. So we need to check we need to have LCA perspective when we analyze AI driven businesses. One, one thing we are having in our mind. And then two, how we scope AI driven business is another difficult question. So basically, AI is very easy to scale. So maybe use case wise, the first phase of the use case, let's assume like kind of humanoid robot or something like that. Maybe first use case is some some industry where lack of labor is happening, so that they are solving some social issues. But maybe if that's humanoid robot company scale, they might replace normal laborers and then like that could generate layoff or other low employment rate, and then lack of social welfare.
Yeah, so the unintended consequences
Exactly.
of a
Exactly.
small but growing business in some ways. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the kind of difficult, point. Like what's the kind of reasonable scope of AI, and when we make impact investing in AI-driven companies. So we are now internally discussing that point, and then try to have some kind of thought leadership paper in coming months. So yeah, stay tuned.
It's on your mind at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
And looking ahead, what are you most excited about in terms of future of impact investing in Japan at the moment? What is it that excites you about the scene as it?
Sure. So as I mentioned, the number of players in Japan is steadily increasing, and then GPIF could start investing considering impact in the near future. So if, institutional capital fully enters the space, the market could scale very rapidly in Japan. Especially we have kind of business tradition that cares about stakeholders from ancient times. The business should be good for not only for business owner, but for employee or employees, and also the society. So that's the kind of rules or mindset that business players have had in Japan. So I hope with the inflow of institutional capital, society will adopt new, more sustainable form of capitalism in the future. So that's something I'm hoping for at this moment.
That's great. That's fantastic. Well,
Yeah,
I think we'll close it there. But Masa, thank you so much for joining us. It was really to hear your perspective from Japan. I hope to see you soon. But if you're listening and have suggestions for future guests, do get in touch. And if you're building a tech for good startup and looking for early stage investment in the UK, you can learn more about Bethnal Green Ventures at bethnalgreenventures.com. So that's it for today. Thanks to Masa, and thanks for listening, and goodbye.